Hey, what's up, guys? I'm Doug. Sideshow sucks, and you're watching Pedro's interviews.
Hey guys, this is Pedro back with another interview covering VCT. Not so specifically within the season. We're in the off season right now, but now that we're in the off season, I have a chance to do a little bit of a more variety approach, just talking to players, coaches, content creators about their past career and even their current career in this game. And so for this occasion, I have here with me a familiar face, specifically those within the North American Valorant competitive scene. His name is BcJ, obviously a past member of the good old XSET squad days and also EG for a little good of amount of time, and most recently was competing in the second tier of North American Valorant with M80. And so, BcJ, thank you so much for taking the time doing this and giving me your time to do this interview. And just want to give you the obvious first question that I always do. What are you feeling? What's the vibes like? How are you? How have you been spending this off season?
Yeah, I remember losing the tournament and I had like no emotion in my body. I couldn't explain it. Never felt like that in my life. Where coming out of the tournament, we were told like you got to pack up and get ready for your flight the next day. So I really had like no emotion. I was just trying to like figure out what I'm gonna do to get back home and get back home safe. And then I get home. The first 2 weeks were a bit rough. You kind of get some gears turning. Like, oh, what teams am I gonna join? Oh, what am I gonna do next? What am I gonna start scrimming again? And then you realize it starts to get a little quiet. Like, oh, there aren't that many changes. Oh, there aren't that many teams that are looking for players. Oh, we've already missed, since Ascension is finished, we've missed all the trial windows with a lot of different teams. So it starts to sink in, I think, towards like the third week. And I think that was for me, like when I realized like, man, this is kind of getting scary for not only myself, but almost every tier two player at that point. Like, if you don't have a team at this point, you're gonna be in tough shape trying to find one for next year. So I think the vibes right now are just I'm really focused on next year and trying to be the best version of myself as always, but I think it's kind of scary, right? Like that's kind of the vibe I think I have the most is Halloween's coming right around the corner. I'm scared that me and my fellow Valorant tier 2 players might not have a job next year, and I don't know what that's going to look like for the scene as a whole.
Yeah, I do. I definitely do understand just how tough a predicament this has been. Kind of talked about it in one of my videos earlier at the time around Ascension was going on about how due to Ascension kind of happening after Champions and how it's also happened like literally at the start of the off season for the tier one teams that basically all the tier two players and teams, those that are not in Ascension, basically have a head start to kind of get into conversations about joining tier one teams or moving elsewhere within tier two, for 2025. And as a result of, as you kind of said, by playing in Ascension, you guys were basically on a sort of a delayed start on that aspect. And so, just since you kind of talked about that, and we're kind of opening up on that subject, I kind of want to dive into it now. What was that kind of? How would you kind of navigate it through just sort of the post ascension uh, days of just searching for a team and just having to, you know, find any potential suitors.
Yeah, obviously I work with my agent every off season. Been working with them. They try to figure out the best spots for me, putting my name out there. On top of that, I've been putting my name out there myself, trying to reach out to organizations, reaching out to their general managers. Some haven't even responded back, so that's unlucky. But um, you know, some have, and some have given me, their opinion on what the best thing for me would be going forward. I've asked like my past teammates, past players. One of my biggest advisors has always been Aaron for me. We stayed in contact since XSET days. He's been helping me a lot. Try to like figure out what I want to do with my life and what I want to do with my career. So I give a shout out to those guys that have helped me a lot. But yeah, it's pretty much out of your control. The reality is that a lot of this stuff happens behind closed doors without really you having much impact at all. Especially nowadays, the organizations kind of have somebody who's making the big changes, whether that's your coach or your general manager or the CEO of the company. Like whoever is making those decisions, it's kind of out of the players' hands at this point. We're at that point in the league where those people that are making the decisions know who they want and they're going to get who they want most of the time. there's not really much you can do as a player to really put yourself out there. I've been playing a lot of games off like outside of that, like besides the networking and trying to put my name out there. I've been streaming pretty much every other day. I've been playing both Valorant and Deadlock like 8 or 10 hours a day. When I'm not doing that, I'm usually spending like my off season or like that little 4 hour window before I go to bed. I'm usually eating and hanging with friends. I'm trying to reset, trying to stay mentally tough. Because yeah, it's not easy spot to be in, but I'm still playing the games every single day. I'm still grinding to try to make it back to tier one. I know that a lot of us are capable of being in tier one, but just not that many slots right now. So, you know, got to do what you can to stay at your peak form and try to make something out of this dream.
Yeah, it really does feel like just sort of there's a large pool of great players, including yourself, and just kind of having to be in a situation where as you said, the available spots are very scarce, and unless like you're actually god tier, or more so like a very um exciting and young prospect, the unless you're in within those kind of things, you're not even going you're not going to be in a position where you are in a tier one team and just have to kind of have your spot secured. That's what I'm kind of trying to say, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Mm. Yeah. And that said, now that we kind of touched upon a little bit over the present, now I want to kind of backtrack everything up to the start of where, basically the start of your esports career, BcJ, and before you got into Valorant. Obviously, it's something that you talked about so many times in other content pieces for other people. But for this occasion, just want to ask you how it was for you before you got into Valorant, and obviously competing in Battalion 1944, Apex, a little bit of Overwatch on the side on top of that. Um, Walk me through those days, and just in order, just having to get your name out there in just those titles at the start of your career. What was that era like for you, and how did you kind of then uh, consolidate your career in which you could kind of play in different games also?
Yeah, man. It's been a long ride. Obviously, I've grown up playing games. I played pretty much every console game growing up. I was always on the PlayStation. Me and my dad would play probably since I was like age 6 and up. I was playing mainly Call of Duty when I was growing up, like through middle school and high school. And I played with my neighbors, played with my friends and stuff like that. And I was always like the best out of my group. And I wanted that competitive itch to like kind of pursue into other games that I played. Like I always wanted to be the best. I don't know if I just wanted to prove that to other people or what was going on in my head when I was younger, but I always wanted to be the best because I could. Like I knew that I could. Um, and I kind of carried that into my first competitive game, which was Overwatch. I always played games for fun. I never really thought too much of it. My friends around me were competing in CS in the ESEA leagues for a bit
Mhm.
in like open, and they actually went pretty far. I think they ended up playing against a pro team like Splice. I think they got smashed or they won like 8 rounds only. But the fact that my friends were doing that and I wasn't, like, I don't know if that like made me jealous. Like, damn, like that sounds so fun. Like they're playing matches, they're competing. I was never that great at CS. I was always like the sub. I was like good enough to compete and shoot, but not good enough to like think. Like I was just a COD kid. I was running around shooting everyone. So CS wasn't my game. We all got Supreme and Global together, like grinding through. I think I started high school year at like silver in CS. So we all grinded together to get to that level, and that was probably what made me fall in love with PC gaming. Swapping over from console to PC was probably CS. And then I think Overwatch was, yeah, the first game I really started playing a lot. I was so hype trying to like get ready for the beta because people had access to the closed beta. Well, not me. I had to wait until the game launched. So when the game officially launched, I grinded my way up to top 500 on my own. I was pretty proud of that. Like solo queue was the first game that really kind of, I don't know, like tells you like you're one of the best in the region. And I just thought that was so cool. Like to me, like I'm a kid in high school. I thought that was the like dopest shit ever. Like oh shit, the game thinks I'm good. Like that's really cool. And they gave me like a badge and everything. And I carried that love for Overwatch into trying to look for a team, trying to compete, play tournaments and stuff. It was a little closed, like, it was kind of gated. You know what I mean? Like you had to be one of the best to be in the tournaments and to compete and find a team. So what I ended up doing was I found a high school league. Only high schoolers could compete in, and they had this rule where you had to have 3 of the 6 from the same high school. So I obviously didn't have anyone from my high school, so I joined up with this group of like 4. They all
Mhm.
went to the same school. They were all like masters level, like not great, but good enough. Like that's the immortal equivalent in Valorant, right? They were all immortal players. And we ended up winning like pretty much everything in that high school league. I only played a few top 500 players in that league, but that got my name out there to some of the people that I still talk to today. One of them that I make fun of all the time is Taponzor, my friend Josh. He played in this tournament. He was one of the best Overwatch players. He's living a full-time job now, but that kind of connection got me in with a few of those players that were in that upper echelon in the top 500. And from there, they invited me to the Battalion 1944 Pug Discord, where we were running in-houses with Overwatch players because it was something to do. We all played games for fun. And when I started getting really good at that, because I mean, that combined the best of both my worlds, like COD, CS,
Yeah.
Overwatch, like all of it kind of came together and made sense for me. And so I kind of quickly rose to the top of those like in-houses. I was one of the better players in like the Overwatch little clique that we were playing in, and that kind of propelled me into the craziness of being one of the better battalion players, finding my way onto multiple different teams, getting dropped from different teams, joining different teams. I really got to taste the competitive itch in that game, and I was blessed. Honestly, I will never forget those guys. I still talk to a lot of them this day because they all competed for years. I mean, these guys were Call of Duty players on PC for 6, 7 years. Competing 5v5 was they've lived and breathed, they've bled this game for years, and I was able to be the 16-year-old, 17-year-old kid around them, pretty much just soaking in everything like a sponge.
Mhm.
So I remember one of my famous clips, I got like a 4K one round and my teammate goes, "Oh my God, it's like you grew a brain in a week. It's amazing." And I'll never forget that they were the ones teaching me how to play and how to play around, clutch scenarios, around a team environment, all that stuff. I credit a lot of my teammates to do that for me. And yeah, from that game, it kind of died down. I ended up winning my first ever LAN in that game, which is pretty exciting. Philadelphia 12.
Yeah.
Where if you look back and go to that, it was actually a CS:GO event, and if you
Ye
look at the players who played in that, they're all Valorant players. I mean, the Zelsis, the Som, the Brax, the Freakers, like they were all Valorant players at that event. It's kind of crazy looking back at it that I was at the same place as they were without even knowing it. Um, so yeah, I did that. I won that event, and then the game kind of started to die down, like I said. So I went back to school. I was in college, first year of college. I just graduated, and I was playing. I think Black Ops 4 came out at the time. So I was still playing Call of Duty on PC for fun. That's another game to just run around and shoot people. But we had this thing where kind of Apex players, Battalion players, like all these players from other games, kind of made a Discord again, like a pug Discord, to run 10 mans, run 8s, 4v4, 5v5, just play hardpoint, capture the flag, play search and destroy, play small little tournaments on the weekends for fun with teams. And obviously, I made my team around Battalion players, and we quickly became one of the best teams in there because it's a small Discord full of 50 so players. But something kind of crazy that happened was towards the back end of that, um, Overwatch League started playing into this Pug Discord with us. Players
Yeah.
like Harry Hook, he's the one I remember the most from Dallas Fuel, Harry Hook. A few other Overwatch League players because Black Ops 4 was the first game in the Blizzard client. If you remember, like how there's like Overwatch and all their
Yeah.
Blizzard games. Well, Black Ops 4 is in the client, and so I ended up seeing a lot of players in my games, and it quickly got invited to the Pug Discord, and we started playing them, and well, that led to scouts coming in. The Overwatch League scouts from the Philadelphia Fusion, which was one of the franchise partner teams in the Overwatch League. Their coach and their general manager were in uh, close proximity to almost every single player in there. They were talking to the players, figuring out who's good, who's the best, because they were interested in scouting these next up and coming players. I mean, we were all 17, 18-year-olds playing and we were really, really good. Like we were owning these Overwatch League players. And that connection that I had made with those general managers and those head coaches kind of led to me getting to build my own Apex Legends team. They said, "Hey, like you're the best, probably captain slash IGL in this little pug Discord. We want to like go ahead and build something with you in Apex." And they knew that I had some prior battle royale experience. Black Ops 4 had a battle royale mode. I don't know if you remember that. It's called Blackouts. Um, People were flying around like on the barns, and it was a pretty popular like kill race mode. You'd see Dr. Disrespect running his own tournaments. You'd see all these big streamers coming and going. Some of the COD players would come in and play. You could do like you'd queue up as quads and you'd do 2v2 kill race. So you'd split up into duos and you'd have your duo trying to get as many kills as you can in a quads match, in a squads 4v4 match. And at the end of the game, whoever had the most kills combined would win the match and advance to the next round. So I'd been playing those kill races, and that's kind of the experience that the T1 guys were looking at when it came to building an Apex team. They were like, okay, you're one of the most mechanical players we've scouted in this Discord. You've got the Battle Royale experience. We want you to like build a team. Here are some of the players we're looking at, but you can control what you want. And so in my head, immediately I went to who are the best blackout slash COD players I can get? Like, who are the most mechanically skilled guys I could form the God Squad around? And I went with my duo, who was Kurt at the time. We'd played a few kill races. He's actually the manager for Evil Genius's Valorant. I worked with him on EG. I think he only recently got fired in the budget cuts last year. I worked with him he was my teammate, and then our third was Zerg, who had been a 16-year-old like Widowmaker prodigy in Overwatch, but he never really got to play. He always like sat on the bench, and he always played on the academy team. Never really got to play because he only played Widowmaker. He pretty much only had one hero that he was really good at. So he kind of struggled to find his footing in competitive. But when he swapped over to Apex, I mean, he was one of the best players you could find. So that became the 3-man roster. We ran that for, I think, a year and a half. We had some pretty good results. We dominated every single kill race. I think Face It ran a kill race league. We were the first place like every week. They ran it for like 10 weeks. So our organization was pretty proud of us for that, which solidified us getting an invite to the X Games in Minneapolis. We got 7th or 8th in the X Games Invitational. It was my first really big in-stage LAN. We played in the arena that the Vikings are playing in. I mean, it was really, really cool in Minnesota. So I went from that to getting second place with Snipedown. I ended up joining a different team with Snipedown, famous Halo player, been one of my favorite teammates of all time. And it qualified us for a $25,000 major in Texas. And when that happened, I was pretty excited because, we're getting back in the swing of things. We might get signed. Me and Snipedown were looking to get signed again because I'd played on T1, but I haven't played on an org yet with Snipedown. So I was kind of hoping, like, oh, this would be our chance. And then COVID hit. And when COVID hit, obviously you kind of know what that did to esports. Kind of shuts everything down, makes everything a little more inclusive online, and it just totally killed the tournament. We didn't end up going to Texas. There was no qualifier anymore. There wasn't a tournament anymore. Like it all got changed to online, and it became the ALGS that we know kind of today. But what that meant for me is that all the money that we had been pushing for gets taken away. All those sponsors that we were going to have kind of got taken away. So I got kind of set back to around zero, which kind of sucked because at this point I had dropped out of school to fully commit into Apex. I was making money at the time. It was something that I had to commit full time to. I was IGLing both my teams that I was a part of. I was putting in all the time to like research zones, play every single day. I'd hit rank 1 in like multiple different seasons of Apex. So I was playing this game nonstop and I needed to commit full time to this. And so I was pretty scared again. What's going to happen? Snipedown ended up getting an offer to a different team. I think he ended up joining Rogue or something at that point, one of the organizations that were in the game. And so that kind of left me as a free agent. And I didn't really know what to do or have much choice to really find a new team or try new players again. So I trialed with a few different teams. Nothing just really was meshing, and I ended up going to play with the old Fnatic guys, iShiny and Muffins. They actually played pretty much their entire careers together. They were brothers, and They still are in the Apex scene today. I think both of them are coaches now. I know iShiny works with Cloud9. I don't know where Muffins works, if I'm totally honest. But they're still in the scene today. And we played tournaments together online, those ALGS online tournaments that we were talking about during COVID. And we had always made grand finals lobby every time. We didn't scrim, we didn't practice at all, because on the side, behind closed doors, I was playing Valorant all day long because Valorant had released. I had been just totally infatuated with this game. I loved it. I've been playing it pretty much all day. I'd gotten rank 1. I think when the leaderboards officially came out, because they didn't show you back then, first couple seasons, it just said Radiant, right?
Yeah.
And then they put out that famous tweet of, here are your North American leaderboard representatives. And I had rank 3 on my main. I had like rank 21. I had rank 50. And I had like rank 250 on like across all my accounts. So I was playing that much of Valorant. Obviously, it just meant that I was playing so much on all those accounts. I got them all Radiant and they were all top 500. So I was pretty proud of that achievement. And I knew that I was going to be good enough to compete in this game, whether, it was coming soon or later, like we'd have to wait for tournaments or teams. I was really excited to start my career into that game. So on the side, when we were doing Apex, we were getting like 7th, 8th, and those guys wanted to push themselves even further. They wanted to find someone who wanted to scrim, which was totally fair, and they wanted to find someone full-time that would commit to Apex. So this is where I started. I separated from the Fnatic guys. They ended up finding a new third, and I went full-time into Valorant. I had left Apex completely. I'd gone full-time into this Valorant thing. I've been scrimming on the side. I've been playing small tournaments, but nothing really coming of it. I'm struggling to find a team. And I kind of find my footing with High Ground, which was kind of helped coached by Hypoc, which is one of the casters now. We worked with your boy Dre, famous name. We worked with Sharky, who ended up competing with Complexity, had a short stint with them. I ended up competing with Valiate and Pride. Those guys were on the first iteration of the 100 Thieves roster. They were old ex-PUBG pros. So that was the first really team I got to scrim with and play tournaments with, and we ended up getting like top 8 in one of the NSG weeklies. And that got trials for a lot of my teammates. Sharky and your boy Dre instantly got shipped to, I think it was LG and Complexity at the time. And so that forced our team to kind of make another decision, like, what are we going to do? We're 3 out of 5. We're really struggling to find, our footing. And this whole time, my Battalion friends, who I've known for, this is 3 years later, have been begging me to come play with them on their team in Valorant. And they've been just like, hey, listen, the spot's here. We know you. You know us. Like, if you want to compete with us, like, please, like, give us a call. And it was finally time for me to be like, you know what? Let's go full circle. I don't have a team right now. I want to scrim. I want to compete. I joined the Sedated roster, which was fully comprised of Battalion players. I had played with my ex-LAN teammate Lex, Sinker, Shane, and this roster was like fully comprised of all the guys I used to know. So it was super easy for me to come in and do really well. I ended up playing Duelist for them. I was playing against all your favorite players. I remember I just made fun of Zelsis last week. I said I Reyna diffed him on Haven. We were playing Phoenix and stuff back in the days. It was crazy, man. But yeah, those comps were pretty much double duelists. So I was on the rifle duelist role. I was playing Raze, Reyna, and Phoenix. We ended up getting really good results. We went from top 8 to tournaments to like top 4. And we were doing really, really well in the tier 2 space. And that was like propelling us to get invites to some of these tournaments. And one of the tournaments I got invited to was another NSG, I believe. But what this allowed us to do is play against some of the more well-known organizations. We were playing against the Equinoxes of the world, the Andbox, the LG. We played against XSET back when they first formed. And that match is one of the most historic matches of my career because I remember watching Icebox, Sean Gares, and he was spectating DRX in the beginning of the game, right when Icebox came out. They were playing a single duelist Sova comp, and I was so like infatuated by that. I was like, wow, that is really cool. Like everyone's playing double duelist in NA. No one is trying this Sova comp that's giving them like crazy scans and wall hacks and free kills on Icebox. It's working really well for them. I, the duelist player, was like, well, it's technically my position since I'm not playing Jet. My teammates got Jet. Why don't I bring this to my team and I'll try playing Sova for this map and we'll see how it goes. Because we didn't really figure out our comp on that map. Well, I started playing Sova on that map. I get against XSET in a best of one on Icebox. And so I get to play Sova. And I had probably the best match I've had in all of tier 2. I had like 35 kills and we barely lost in overtime. I mean, it was like 14-16 or something like that in like a triple overtime. Didn't
Yeah,
think anything of it.
it was like around like 15-13, and obviously you were the top fragger for your team, and obviously it was a loss, but it can say that, as you said, the most important match of your career up to that point. Because like I can say, with certainty that after that, XSET looked at you, saw that the thing that you brought to the team, to your team, and the match, and how difficult of an obstacle you were, and then that kind of led to you joining XSET. And yeah, then that started, your journey in that org. And obviously, like, looking at XSET's journey to the top of North American Valorant, it wasn't really an immediate ascension. It was one that happened gradually, with a few players coming in one at a time, up until the very end of 2022. Obviously, you were, well, obviously first we had Aaron at that XSET squad first coming into it, and then you joined at the beginning of 2021, and then later on we'd see, dephh, zekken, cryo. That would kind of complete the overall roster that we know and remember of today. And so, still though, just as you were kind of getting into the journey with XSET in the early part of 2021, obviously kind of had to take a little bit of a time for XSET to distinguish themselves as one of the top teams, one of the most promising top teams in North America. I mean, obviously, first time that you played with the team, you guys qualified for Stage 1 Masters in North America, the regional. Not really the first international. We had to win into Stage 2 for that to happen. Masters Reykjavik 2021. But people forget that before that we had the Stage 1 Masters, and that just basically had regional tournaments, regional finals. And in that event, you guys finished 7th to 8th, losing to Gen G. Still though, like, kind of walking through covering the initial months of that XSET squad from your point of view. How kind of walk me through what it was like, playing with the likes of Aaron, and I can even also tell you some of the other names that were in the team for XSET. You got We Did, you got Pure, or dephh. What was that like?
Oh, it was crazy, man. Because Thwaifa was like the captain, the pseudo captain of the team. Before we got Psycho, and Psycho kind of realized Aaron was going to take that role, it was Thwaifa, and he was the one building the roster and kind of figuring out who the pieces were. And so he was also like IGLing on CT side a lot of the time. And man, his setups were so crafty. It was super really raw aim. And our team was like comprised of all those like young raw aimers, right? At the start. And We Did come in, We Did was around that same category, was the next up and coming raw aimer. Like that was our entire team, right? And we kind of relied on that, and we didn't really find too much success because we were figuring out what roles we wanted to play. We had to role swap like 3 different times. Obviously, Aaron was playing Raze at that time. Like crazy stuff was happening back then, for us to even get to that point. They actually trialed me on like 3 different roles. Like I was playing Smokes at one point before. Like we didn't figure out the roles until pretty much we had a coach and we had spent like a month together. So playing with those guys was really, really like my first family. We did it the right way. We made sure we were listening to every single point. We not only would like listen to criticism from our teammates, but we would like actually act on it. I remember there was a few months where we did felt uncomfortable with his role, and so instead of just what teams do now is just kick them from the team, we actually worked with Weeded and said, hey, like let's figure out something out. What role do you like? Where do you like to be? And we actually worked with him pretty closely to figure out like he was playing Phoenix and Sky on a lot of maps, like things
Yeah.
that we thought was going to work for him. We actually made efforts as a team to like further ourselves as players and as a team. I feel like we kind of lost that with today's era of VCT, but back then we were doing that because of our coaching staff with Psycho and because of the teammates that we had with Arian and Twyfo. Like we had the guys who could do it. Obviously, it didn't work out. We ended up making a few different roster changes throughout the way, but I always stuck with Aaron from the beginning. He was my teammate that I've been with the longest. Pure is another name that I got to give a shout out to. He was one of our best players for pretty much the entirety of the roster. He carried us in so many matches, and even into the big time matches, he showed up a lot of different times where people didn't think he would. Kind of goes back to like showing like if you put the work into these players and you give them the criticism and you work with them in a positive way, like you can make them into superstars. Like we made Pure like start opping more. We realized this guy was like one of the
Yeah.
best oppers. He never really bought it. And we were like, Bryce, like buy the op, man. You're unreal. And he had some of the best clutches with an op. I'll never forget the one in Ascent. He's behind Jen and he gets like a 4K clutch against 100 Thieves, I think it was. And he won us the map. Like that type of team environment is something I strive for. I love. Like I love being a part of, even if we're bad at certain points in time, like that's fine. Because you know what? We're gonna get better every single day and we're gonna become the superpower that we ended up becoming towards the end of that team. Like went all the way to LCQ with Pure. Obviously we didn't do that with Thwifo and We Did. We Did was actually competing with NRG at that point. Thwifo was competing under a couple different teams as well. Um, kind of more in the tier 2 space. But Twyfo never really found his footing. I think he turned into coaching, which is what he's doing now, or he used to. And We Did turned into more of a streamer for a short bit, and then went back to pro play after Energy. Obviously, he's on a challengers team now. He's been on Turtle Troop for a long time, so he's still in the scene. Pure
Mhm.
R ended up going back to a full time job. He had one when he was starting to play Valorant, but he went back to that. And that's kind of where we transitioned into like the players that we needed to get to elevate us to the tier 1 level. Like we needed players to take us from that level to the next.
Yeah, and now I want to cover, exactly bringing in Def in second, first and foremost. Def would, I mean, in due time, I guess he would eventually become the IGL of the XSET squad, but um, and yeah, like I want to know about your thoughts on just what it was like playing with him on the early portion of this newer version of the roster, in addition to that zekken. Obviously, in the same way that has been talked about you, plenty of people talked about him, and even especially during the early days, and even obviously for in the present for obvious reasons. But kind of bit of a two-part question. What you kind of look at in Def that allowed him to then take on a much bigger role a few like later down the line, and in addition to that, zekken, did you kind of see, did you get a sense of just how good zekken would be, from the time you kind of first came into contact with him, and then bringing him in over to your team, and then seeing him perform, in 2021, 2022? Did you kind of see that potential at first?
Oh, 100%. I'll get to Zekken later because he was kind of the second addition of the team. Because when we were looking to make changes, we really only wanted to make one. We really only wanted to change, I believe it was We Did. So we wanted to keep Thwifo, Aaron, myself, and Pure R. We were going to find a fifth. And what we were looking for is an IGL. So we tried a whole bunch. We tried probably a list of 8 or 10 different players. We'd given them different tryouts. We've even tried different things like, okay, if we don't get an IGL, who can we get? We tried some jet players. We tried running double duelists. We tried some flex players. We tried some sentinels. Like we tried everything. And we ended up settling on dephh. And because he was just off his stint with Dignitas, he'd not really done too much, but he had competed in those tier 1 tournaments. So he had that itch. He had that grind about him. Like he wanted to work with us. He wanted to take his experience and bring us to that next level. And he wanted to IGL. He wanted to call on CT or on T and CT. So what that did for us is, I mean, that made a pretty clear choice. We were between two players back then. I think it was JC Stanny and dephh. And then Stanny made his own choice and ended up joining Ambox, which was kind of surprising. So we went with dephh. It was a clear, easy decision for us once that happened. So we went with dephh. Really good leader. Always was really paying attention when it came to how your teammates were feeling, making them feel included. When it came to like keeping your teammates involved, allowing others to take over strategy because we were a really talkative team and like we really wanted our IGL to be accepting of what we wanted to do as well. Like we didn't want to change entirely of how we wanted to play. That goes credits to Psycho and Aaron on kind of the leadership of the team at that point. Um, not making sure that he doesn't take over the team fully. Like we still wanted to have a say, kind of how teams do now. You know, everyone has a say on certain rounds and has certain opinions on what they want to do with maybe a solo play, for example. Like I'd have the most say on that. Um, so it was really good. It was a really good fit. He came in and pretty much nailed the tryouts, and it was an easy pick for us once we got him. Zekken kind of came in after that. Well, we had scouted him. We had noticed that we wanted to try to like work with him, but we didn't really like settle on him. We were, like I said, we kind of had that 5 in mind. And so what changed was Twyfo had an altercation or something with the organization, and they couldn't agree on a deal for next year. So he ended up getting removed from the team, from the organization. They couldn't figure out a deal or a contract or whatever. And um, we were looking for a new player. And, you know, our owner was like, look, just get Zach. Get Zekken. Get this guy on. Like, he's insane. We were kind of thinking of getting him as like a 6-man because before that happened, he had dropped like 40 on us in a scrim when he was playing with like Noble or whoever team that was. And we were like, dude, who is this kid? He's destroying us on Raze. So we had our eyes on him and we'd scouted him. But this kind of changed it from that to we're going to get him. We're going to find a way to integrate him into this team, and he's going to take Twyfo's role. And what that did is it changed a lot of things. It changed what roles we wanted to play. Twyfo was playing Sentinel for us, so we changed everything to fit Zekken into the system. We made him the most comfortable he could be. We made Purar the most comfortable he could be on Duelist, and we made myself the most comfortable while playing Initiator. And the support players kind of became dephh and Aaron. dephh and Aaron floated between playing Smokes and Sentinel on almost every single map, and they did that through the entirety of the Valorant career. Like, dephh ended up playing Astra a lot of the times, if you notice. Aaron was playing all Smoke characters, and he was playing Sentinels towards the back end. dephh was really well known for playing Cypher as well. Like, these guys have been bouncing on these roles for a really long time, and that cemented the foundation of XSET. Like, we had 2 supports, we had 3 fraggers, and we had a really good system with our IGL, our co-IGL Aaron, and our coaching staff around Psycho. And so we had it built right then and there when we got Zekken.
So I guess the best way to kind of describe what the XSET way is, as you kind of described it in your most recent answers, just versatility, right? Just having to deal with whatever parts that come into the squad, regardless of how different it is from the kind of plan you guys already had in place before such a move was done, and just having to adapt. Versatility, is that kind of the best way to kind of describe how it was with your days in XSET in that year and also in 2022?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, versatility. And the thing was, is they didn't have to do it on their own. Like, we had built this team together. We'd all trust each other so much, and we were willing to learn from one another. Like, no one was upset if me or Aaron were giving dephh, oh, this is how you should throw this smoke. I seen it in ranked. Or, oh, this is how you should throw this nade, Zach. I thought I saw this guy do it. Like, if we do it Asher Suck here and a nade here, it really works. Like, players nowadays like are kind of tasked to do that stuff on their own, which is kind of crazy. The last 3 teams I've been a part of, like, you're more tasked to find your own stuff and to work on your own lineups than you are like combining that as a team. It's like coach gives you a strat and you got to find the lineup for this. And it's like, okay, I got you, coach. I'll do it. That's kind of how I worked with Happy this year. But with XA, it was more like we're all working on the same thing together. We're finding, like, I remember Psycho thought he was the best Sova dart lineup finder, so he would come in, try to find darts. All these guys were doing that kind of stuff, and I really only got to taste that with my assistant coach this year with Gunter. He was doing that a big time for us, like finding darts and stuff. But the rest of it was like pretty much the day of or day after it. I'd have to find stuff, or me and Gunter would have to find lineups for M80. Same thing on EG. I really wasn't really taught how to play smokes. I just kind of had to use everything that I already knew from prior knowledge, and obviously learning on my own. So that's what I think the biggest difference from the XSET squad to my current squads, the last few teams I've been on, is we were more willing to work together as a team, and we were a unit. We were one solidified unit, and making roster moves was hard, but it was hard because we were a family, you know? Like, we were more so a family than any team I've been on. I swear, like, that was why we were improving at such a fast rate. We never took things personally, but we always made sure that even if we did take things personally or it came out the wrong way, we would say it in a nice way. We'd say it in a positive manner. Like, as many negative things as we'd say, like, oh, you fucked this up, or oh, you should have won this, or oh, you should have done this, we would have just as many positive things to say. Oh, dude, that was an insane round. Good job. Good lurk. Oh, yo, you've been playing really well recently, but I want you to do this. Like, that's how we operated. And I think it's so important in today's esports culture because we're losing that. I really do feel like we're losing that like positive reinforcement that's making these players want to actually win, want to get better, want to improve. And I'm hoping that I can bring that into the next team that I join for sure. Whether I'm like IGLing or co-IGLing, like I really want to instill like positive reinforcement goes a long way, man. It's like the secret sauce to any like really, really good team.
It's definitely that constant, inner collaboration of a team that allows it to do well in subsequent events and just have it also continue the team's progression from like an average team to thus being a regional superpower. And so, I mean, as I said, that kind of just translated how the XSET story played out at the end of 2021. And obviously, it was also around that time in which you guys developed just that fourth place curse. You just finishing fourth place regardless of how well you do. You always finish fourth place. You finish fourth place in stage 3 challengers of 2021. You finish fourth place in LCQ. You finish fourth place in the next challengers of 2022. That obviously would end in stage 2 or 3 in 2022 when you guys won over Optic in that grand finals. But still, getting back into just the fourth place curse, why did such a curse ever exist for your team in particular?
We just started to stagnate when it came to the learning. We got to that point where pretty much it was the first time for all of us to kind of reach that tier 1 Valorant space. It was our first time really, really competing in the tier 1 tournaments, solidifying ourselves as a tier 1 team, a top 4 team. Like, it's the first time for all of us. I don't think any of us have been a part of a top 4 team, maybe Averin in the beginning of the beta, but like that's it. So when it came to that, I just feel like we slowly became a little complacent. Like complacency takes over a lot of different teams, but for us, it wasn't like we stopped working or grinding. It's just we stopped taking that criticism well, and we stopped
Mm-hmm.
being positive reinforce. Like we stopped that positive reinforcement that got us here, and we started to find excuses, and we started to find reasons for us to lose, and it wasn't actually tackling the main issues that we had with the team. And I was kind of like wondering myself, like, why are we saying stuff like the criticism and the problems that we were having, like, weren't even really that bad, in my opinion. Like, the real reasons we were losing, we weren't even talking about. And I felt like that plagues a lot of teams now, but it plagued us. It did. It like we weren't actually fixing the real issues. We were fixing the smaller issues, right? We did, but we weren't actually fixing the major issues. So that kind of stagnated us. That kind of made us plateau. And it only started to get better when we swapped out Pure for Cryo, and we got an assistant coach, which was DrewSpark. Those two things, I feel like really, really propelled us to the next level. Having another set of eyes on the game to work with the players interpersonally, like in person, like having two coaches to kind of bounce off each other really helped each other. I know they have spoken on that a lot of different times, how they each have helped one another learn the game, and they really bounce off ideas really well. And obviously, Cryo came in and fixed a lot of the problems. Like he had a different view for the game. Not to say Pure R had a bad view for the game. It's just towards the end of the career, like he was like, not as focused on the same goals as we were. And that's fine. Like he ended up going to Gen.G and did really well for them. Like Pure R ended up having a still pretty good career after that, and he joined multiple different organizations after that. It's just when you have this type of system that we have, you all have to be on the same goal or else it won't work. Right. And so we started to shift to different paths, which is fine. It makes sense. And we sadly had to make another roster move. Like it killed us. But we did it and it worked really well. And we found somebody. I think we ended up scouting him again through the tier 2 league. And we found he was gonna be our new duelist. He's gonna buy the op. He had been opping so much and we really, really wanted that out of our next duelist. And it just made sense for us. Like Bryce was or Pure was not opping as much, and we wanted our sniper, our Jet, to be opping, so we could play Jet on a weak side, right? We could keep him on an A line or keep him by himself, and he'll get 2, and the other side will be stacked. Like that's how we wanted to run our team, and we just found so much success with that with Cryo, and it ended up working really, really well once we got him. Pretty much, those 2 changes solidified us for. I mean, we could have ran with that roster for another like 3-4 years easy. Like that was a team built to be a superpower, and we showed that when we finally were able to beat Optic and represent. Yeah, we were the #1 NA seed going into Champions 2022.
Yeah, it definitely was one that, if people kind of also have like a thought of just what if this team continue playing. Kind of getting a little bit over ahead of myself. Still want to backtrack onto 2022. Drew, I mean, at that point, nobody really heard of Drew in Valorant, save for Rainbow Six. Obviously he was an analyst on that game before making the switch over to Valorant. What kind of contribution did he bring to the team? Also, in addition to just having to uh, amplify or more so improve the system that you guys already had in place in XSET. What kind of things did he do that enhanced the effectiveness of the team's form and the subsequent improvement?
I think having another professional in the room really helped us. Like sometimes when you're playing the game, it can get heated and you can say things that are just on the top of your head without actually thinking about it. And so I think having another level-headed professional in the room who's not playing the game, is not really involved on the pressure of the match, really helped us. Obviously Psycho that was what he did best. He kept us level-headed and he kept us focused on the task, but sometimes the adrenaline's running and, like you need to figure out the actual solution. DrewSpark would come in and tell us, "Hey, this is what you guys are doing. That's not working, and this is what you have done that is working." And I remember like the crazy like Drew did that simple stuff, but like he went all the way to like doing every scrim that we played, he would have a spreadsheet and he would mark every kill that we got, every kill that was traded, every death that was traded. He would mark it down handwritten.
Hmm.
He would check a box. He would check this little box in his little document and he would track that stuff before any of the tracking websites came out about, right? Obviously, we have a couple of those tracking websites now that can watch scrims, read the scrims, bring up all the data that you could ever want within your team environment. But back then we had to do it by your hand, and that was what Drew
Yeah.
did best. I mean, I remember going to his computer and asking him, like, yeah, as you would, like, yo, what you up to? What you working on? And I'd look at his document and I'd be like, wait, you're doing this much work? Like, this is crazy to me. Um, and from that moment, I've fallen in love with working with my analysts. I worked with Zix. I loved working with Zix on EG. Gunter on M80, loved working with him. And I'd found that new love for like working with my analysts more closely because I just found it so cool, man. Like the things he was doing for us was really represented in game. Like he was able to give us in-game data that no one else was really able to give.
And oh my god, I kind of imagine what it was like being True, just having to watch every round of all the games that he's been watching. Kind of penciling in whatever spot a kill happened within each match. And oh my god, I can only imagine how time consuming it is. What on top of just having to do all the other things that an analyst has to do in order to help XSET improve. And yeah, like from that point on in uh that XSET team's trajectory. You guys were eventually able to make international event. You guys didn't make the first Reykjavik of 2022. That didn't happen. You guys finished fourth on that one again. But then you guys won stage two challengers overall, beating Optic, making Copenhagen the team's first international appearance and being in an international land for you, obviously first one of the kind. Just sort of two-parter in this one. Will kind of spark the change for the team from stage one challengers up until stage two and the subsequent victory there. And yeah, I think that I said two parts, but this is gonna be the question.
Got you. Yeah, I'll never forget that moment. I mean, even qualifying for it was crazy because I don't know if you remember, but the way to qualify was like you had to get a certain amount of points, right?
Yeah.
And if we had beaten FaZe in the lower finals, I think it was, we would qualify for Copenhagen through points. So that was a big match for us. We did that. We celebrated. We were hyped. But then when we played Optic in the grand finals, that qualified us for champs. So we were like, oh shit, like this is the big match. Like, let's go. And we qualified for that. And we were like, I mean, we were already hyped, but imagine how hyped we were for qualifying for both the biggest international events you've ever played as a team in the same weekend. Like it was the same weekend that we did that. And I'll never forget those moments. I went back to the VOD just a couple of weeks ago and watched us celebrate after winning both of those matches. And yeah, like I think for us, it was kind of the culmination of everything that we've been working on. I've said that in the past as well. It's like you work so hard, the hard work that you put in finally pays off, and you get to earn your own spot through winning that tournament yourself. Like you get to write your own history. I think that's like the best story that you can write, man. It's not like you had to get some other team to win and oh this team to lose so you can qualify. Like oh you go through no, we wrote our own story by winning our way through the tournament, getting first place, and I just think that that made it so much more cool. Like way better of a story for us, and it kind of like solidified us as a top team in the league. And I was so proud of that team at that moment. I'll never forget they were just so comforting. I remember for some reason I was uncomfortable playing in the main room. I don't know if it was like hot or something. So they let me play in the team house in my own bedroom.
Mm.
Like that team was so comforting, man, and just made me feel so comfortable being around them. And yeah, I'll miss those guys for that exactly. And yeah, I mean, getting to that point, getting to those internationals, we had some crazy rounds in those international lands. Let me tell you, we had some crazy moments, and it was some highs, some lows. But I'm proud to say that we got top 8 in Copenhagen, and I'm proud to say that we got fifth, sixth. I say we got fifth because fifth, sixth, we were tied with Fnatic, and we beat Fnatic at that tournament.
Yeah.
So I'll claim that we got fifth place at champs, but the actual stat is we got fifth, sixth. So I'm pretty proud of that. Through all of the weird bullshit that happened at the tournaments, I'm pretty proud of not only getting to those lands, but proving that we were actually good enough to compete.
A little bit of a side topic on that. Given you said about the little bit of a story of you having to play in your own personal bedroom, I remember doing a few interviews in North America Challengers remotely in 2022 and also even in 2021. But I remember when I was talking to like Aaron for an interview for one of my outlets that I was working for at the time, it kind of looked like the entire team was playing like in the living room on like
Yeah,
next to the kitchen, right? Was that like literally the case?
yeah. We would play in the kitchen,
Yeah.
and it would be right next to like the TV. Yeah, we'd basically taken, if you know what a dining room is, we'd taken the table and the chairs out of the dining room, and we had set up our desks there. And it was like perfectly along the wall. We had 3 along the wall and then 2 in the back, and it was pretty like spacious because not everybody lived there, if that makes sense. We had dephh who had a house in Louisiana, and we had zekken back home in New Jersey. So we only had me, Cryo, and Aaron living in the house. So it was
Hmm.
really like not even that bad. And we obviously had our own setups in our rooms. So I think Aaron was the only one really playing out in the kitchen. He played there like all day, every day. But the rest of us like chose to play in our rooms. So me and Cryo, like if you saw Cryo streaming in 2022, he'd stream from his room. If you saw me streaming or taking an interview, probably from my room, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So that's what we were doing.
What about the coaches? Were they like situated behind the team? Because like I remember also that also happening.
Yeah, so for coaches, they actually had the specific rule where coaches couldn't be in the same room as your team. So I know they kind of do that nowadays with challengers. They kind of separate your coaches and they have your cameras on your coaches now. But back then, we just had to be in a separate room. So we had another like space upstairs in the house, and we just set up 2 desks there for the coaches to come in. They each had their own apartment in the city, but they didn't live here. So
Hmm.
they would come in for match days. They would have theirs set up of the stairs, and they would have 2 desks there ready to go, and they could fist bump, they could talk about stuff. It was pretty much like out of our way. We couldn't talk to them, couldn't see them, and they did their thing.
Yeah, because that kind of thought really did pop up as you were talking about that situation, and kind of a little bit onto a little bit of a side topic, but a little bit of a side question to the side question. But I kind of also look back on the clip of you saying "rep the fucking set, baby." You were saying like you kind of center yourself, and then you kind of said the fuck word anyway. It is kind of so funny. I still kind of watched out from time to time whenever it does pop up on my feed. But yeah, a good way to remember back on that. But yeah, then what you said about the team kind of playing in different parts of the country, then does that mean by the time Copenhagen rolled around and everybody finally met up, was that actually like the first time you guys met up in person?
So we had briefly met each other every boot camp. So we called it a boot camp where we would have obviously the guys live where they lived, but we would fly them in for weeks at a time, like a week. And Zekken was still on a strict schedule. He would only fly with his mom, and he'd have a bedtime. We made sure that he got back to the Airbnb at a certain time, and we were really strict about like, well, look, whatever his mom needs or whatever his mom wants, we're gonna do it, right? So we made sure he was safe and he was taken care of at the house. I think the first time I met Zach, he was ordering Torchy's tacos for lunch and dinner, and I was like, Zach, like, bro, you love this stuff that much? Like, I got you, bro. Like, start saving it in the fridge. And he did. He started saving like tacos and burritos in the fridge and then heating it up the day after. And I was like, dude, you're still eating Torchies? And that was his first really moment being with the team in person. I guess being with any team in person. Def obviously had been a CS player for a long time, so he was used to the boot camp type stuff. And yeah, we'd see them. I think we saw them at pretty much any big tournament they would be there for that week, right? So there were a few weekends that we couldn't get Zach out. I remember playing a few officials where he's online, which is, going to happen here and there. But most of the time we had Def there in the house in Austin. We had DrewSpark there towards the end of it when we finally got him an apartment in Austin. But he was actually living in Scotland still
Yeah.
for a big part of that team as well. But yeah, everyone else was there. Me, Psycho, Aaron, and Cryo were always in Austin, ready to go. It was only Def and Aaron or Def and Zekken that would bounce like for a week at a time. We saw them maybe 4 different times at the Austin house, so it was not really competing, but it was still like we made a LAN happen in our house, if that makes sense. Like we did what we could to make it like a LAN.
And it definitely did bring out good results, especially as you said, making Copenhagen and champions. Now going into Copenhagen, I mean, many people kind of say like how XSET kind of underperformed in that sense. Qualifying directly to playoffs as a result of winning stage 2 challengers by beating Optic. So by the time the first match rolled around, you played against some teams that already has a few reps in. I believe Leviathan at that time think they had to qualify for playoffs in Copenhagen. Let me just double check on that. No, they did not. They were seeded automatically into. No, 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 no. I was wrong. You had to face Optic first
Yes.
because they
Oh my
lost to you
god.
guys. Yeah, they lost to you guys in challengers, and then they made their way out of group stage into playoffs, and so they were automatically seeded into, well, not automatically, but they were drawn
Yeah, yeah,
to you
they get
guys.
dropped into us again. Like,
Yeah,
oh
yeah,
my
yeah.
god,
So like, what was your reaction to that? When you guys find out that Optic was his first team, and how that kind of first match played out.
bro, we were pissed. I was like, yo, we grinded so long to get international teams and to play these teams, and we thought Optic was one of the best. We thought us and Optic were coming into this tournament as favorites. Like that's genuinely what was going through our heads. Like we were like, we're gonna dominate these teams internationally, and when we saw Optic on our side of the bracket, we were like, "Oh my god, we got to play like we think these guys are sick." And they know us. They know what we like to do. They know how to play against us better than we know how to play them. They always had our number, you know what I mean? So
Hmm.
it was like, "Oh man, we'd finally just beaten them. Like thought we were done with this." Like, "Oh." And yeah, they had our number, man. They took us down and it was tough, but yeah, the game against Leviathan, I mean, that one was famous. That I'll never forget the round where I forget who the duelist was at the time, but their Raze player satcheled into Heaven on Haven to get the bomb that they had dropped. This idiot Omen, I love this guy. I almost teamed with him. It's the crew, what's his name? Melzer. Melzer
Yeah.
was playing Omen for Leviathan. Love that guy. Almost teamed with him on crew. But he was an idiot that round. He TP'd with the bomb in Heaven. And we were like, oh my god, we got this round. It's the last, we got this. And the guy satches up and kills us, and we do end up killing him, but he died outside the window, so the bomb dropped to his teammates. And we still should have won that retake, but we lost the retake and we lost the map. One of the craziest rounds I've probably ever played. And yeah, I think just like that, we were out of playoffs.
Yeah,
So,
it-
fuck, man.
that was that's the spike call
Yeah,
moment. I think that was from Sideshow, I believe. Yeah, a memorable moment, and one that obviously give massive thanks to you for offering the team's POV from that, because that's such a memorable play, and how rough it must have been for you guys on the receiving end. And yeah, like besides that though, what was the biggest struggles in facing Leviathan on that second match of your Copenhagen run?
dude, they were really, really mechanically sharp. And in the chamber meta, which is what we were playing that tournament in, like, dude, it was tough to shut down their chamber. And it wasn't only that, they had a really strong, like, the reason we had done so well is because we had a really strong chamber Raze duo, right?
Mhm.
Like, we had myself on Initiator, we had Zekken on Raze, and we had Cryo on the chamber. And that's why we were so successful. This team had the same damn thing. They had a really good chamber in Taco. They had a really good Raze, who I think was king at the time, right? And they had um really good initiator. And those three just, I mean, they had the identical like markup as we did. Like the team, why we were so successful in that meta, and it was just a hard matchup. Like in that day, any team could have won. I think I remember scrimming Leviathan a lot that year. I think we ended up scrimming them after that for champions. They were our scrim partner. I mean, we must have scrimmed them 20 times, and they were always tough to beat, man. They were a really, really good mechanical team, and I mean, that's why they're so successful. Even now today, like that success has carried on all the way into the VCT Partnership League. Um, Got to give them the credit where the credit's due. They had really talented players, man. Just like we did, like they had really good talented players.
When people look at how XSET performed in Copenhagen, finishing seventh, eighth, basically in the bottom of the playoffs, people are gonna look at, oh, it's gonna be the same thing as what happened in the guard, and how it had like a team full of rookies, and then once they got underneath the brightest of lights, then obviously the pressure got to them. How'd you kind of look at that argument, and how that perception fared around your team, and how do you compare that with what actually happened for you guys, and just biggest obstacles that face the team in that competition?
I think the thing that really stuck out to us as a unit is we were used to losing. We were no stranger to being that fourth place curse. We were no stranger to losing and coming back stronger. And to us, this was a chance to take that opportunity, take that chance to learn from our mistakes once again, just like we always had. It's not the end of our career. It's not the end of our road. The road ends at champs. And what are we gonna do up until that point? And yeah, we just took it as a blessing that we were able to even compete in a beautiful city like Copenhagen. I mean, I remember even after we lost, we still had some of the most memorable moments being in Copenhagen, going on the river and a boat ride that we drove ourselves, like stopping off at the side. Dude, Copenhagen was awesome. You could take this boat down this river, stop and park somewhere, and then get off and grab food, like right there on the dock. Like they had these like parkable like things like for you designed. It was such a cool city. So we did that. We spent our time together pretty much the whole tournament. Um, got back and started grinding again, started, getting even better. We all wanted it. We all were putting everything that we could into each other and, trying to be the best versions of ourselves. Got back to another boot camp. We actually had a boot camp in Poland after that. Spent more time together, learning, getting better. And yeah, we were more together and bonded than ever at that point. And, I think that comes to yeah, just us not being a stranger to losing and still improving every single day. I think that really it sounds so simple to the naked eye, but it's hard, man, to improve every single day when you're at that high level. It's hard to keep improving some days, you know, like some days you're not really sure what to do to improve. You're not really sure who to rely on, and you got to ask questions that might sound stupid. And we weren't afraid to ask those stupid questions. We weren't afraid to take those risks and see if something would work. See if a crazy idea would work. We were doing those things to see if it would elevate us to that next level. And credit to the coaches and credit to our leaders again, Aaron and Def.
What were some of the craziest ideas that you guys were cooking up at that time? You know, can you kind of tell me some of the craziest ideas that you guys were cooking?
I remember when Neon first released, the team and I thought that I would be the best Neon player on the team. So I was playing and scrimming Neon for us for quite some time. We actually played it on Fracture a lot.
Mm.
Um, we were one of the only teams to play Neon on Pearl, if you kind of remember that. Um, no one else was really playing it back then, and we were one of the only teams to do so. Zach had some of the best moments ever, and I think other teams started to take our comp as well. Like Fnatic started to play Neon, and you started to see a little bit more. Obviously, we had one of the better chambers in the league, and trying to like hard save for an op early round, like trying to get Cryo an op, even if like none of us had guns, we would get him an op.
Mm.
Some of these things we were doing that like really no other team was prioritizing as much, if that makes sense.
Mm.
But yeah, I think like probably me playing Neon was one of the crazier things that we did. What else did we do? Hmm. We had some funny eco rounds, things that we like to do, that not really other people like to do, like where we'd leave like Cryo on one side and we'd have four of us on the other side, and surprisingly, Cryo would get like 2 kills and they would try to come back B and we would all four be there. Like some crazy like trap that no one really expected because Cryo was getting headshots like crazy for us. I don't know, small stuff like that that we were willing to try, and not many teams. People call us stupid, like, "Oh, why do you have 4B this round? Like, that's so dumb." Well, it's like, we made an educated guess. What do you want? And stuff like that, I think, translated really, really well in results. Like making those educated guesses, trusting the calls and the reads that we'd have as a team. I think that really elevated us towards the back end, getting into champions.
And now I kind of want to get into champions. First off, given that by the time you guys were, by the time your guys' participation in Copenhagen ended, up until the start of champions, you had to kind of prepare for less than 2 months. Some might say even immediately after Copenhagen. Walk me through how that preparation was like, and what was the kind of perception like for your team from like the public, as in having to rebound from Copenhagen up until Turkey?
I was really, really prepared, as we all were, for this tournament. Not only did we feel like we were playing our best Valorant, and we were still fresh, and we kept our playbook fresh, came up with a bunch of new strats and new ideas. We had a boot camp before, like I said, in Poland. We had a full week and a half there. We immediately fly from Poland to Istanbul, which is not that bad of a flight. Had almost no jet lag. Get to the tournament. We're having really good scrims. Like I said, we were scrim partners with Lev. We're playing them all the time. Really good practice, really good reps. While maybe the other teams were having jet lag, maybe they were getting sick, or maybe they weren't even really scrimming that much, getting good reps, like they didn't really know who to play. We were getting good practice, good sleep. We were good to ease into this tournament. We, didn't get rushed into the playoffs like we did in the last tournament. Everyone starts on equal ground in the group stage. So we knew that it was okay if we lost and it was okay if we won. Like, take your time, play out the event. Every match matters. And I think that really, really helped us settle in. Like, we went from a team that was good to like great. Like, we went to we became a great team at that event, and we became even better throughout the matches. Like, we were already thinking that we were playing our best Valorant, but
Mm-hmm.
that tournament, that practice got us elevated to that next level. Um, and that just goes to the credit of who we were booking in our scrims and how we were treating practice. Like, we treated practice very seriously, and the moment practice was over, we flipped that switch and we were having fun again. Like, we were really good balancing out the practice schedule versus knowing where you're at. You're in Istanbul, you're at a foreign country, you're here with your team, like you want to explore, you want to try some new things, try new food, go see the sights. We did all of that stuff, but we were very serious about practice, and I think it was like the best balance I've had apart any of the teams I've been on. Like it was a really good balance.
What was the reaction like when you guys were drawn into the group with FPX, Crew, and XERXIA? I mean, Crew by that point was the previous year put on an amazing run to the semifinals. FPX were the reigning world champions heading into it with the expectation of just repeating that result. And XERXIA, Southeast Asian team, was formerly X10, and they upset Envy last year to reach quarterfinals and also gave Gambit a run for their money. So, how'd you kind of look at your position in that group?
We definitely gave our everything against FPX. We wanted to show everything that we had against them, show our best maps, show our best strats, all of that. But for the other teams, we weren't as worried. We really did believe that we could beat them by just playing our default, playing our game. Like keeping stuff simple, defaulting them out, getting the info on the map, and then making a call off it. Like that was kind of our game plan, and we did that really well against those two teams. And man, we were shooting straight. Like we were shooting straight that tournament, let me tell you. And that helped too. So the fact that we had 5 really good players who were shooting really, really well, and we had the strategy and the info pretty much every round, it was really hard for those teams to beat us. I think FPX gave us the best run for our money. The maps that FPX were good on, they looked unbeatable. I mean, they were on Fracture, we could not come close. They were light years ahead of us in that map. But on the maps that it was more even, that they put less time into, we were looking more 50-50. Like it was looking more like, damn, like it's anyone's game. Whoever has the better game is gonna win. And we really did feel like it was like that. Like if we had a good game, we would win. If they were shooting good, they would win. And it was hard to stop. A lot of swing rounds both ways, both teams, eco rounds both ways. Um, and when it came to FPX match, I think that was probably my most memorable match. I think for me, I had the best performing like map ever out of my entire career, playing Fade. Because I mean, at that time, Pearl just came out, and we really elevated our game on that map. We really put a lot of work into finding like. I remember dephh helping me with my eyes on Fade. I remember I was comboing flash eyes all the time, and we were one of the only teams to play Chamber for some reason. People like I remember the first time I played FPX, they were playing Cypher. Like it was weird. So they were doing some
Mhm.
weird stuff. We were ahead of the meta at that time, and that really helped us. I really do feel like that was a big reason of why we were able to beat FPX is we brought out the new map Pearl, brought it out. We were really ahead of the meta, and we played a really good map. We played really together. We had a really good synergy. We like I said, we're trying the neon. No one was really big on the neon back then. Worked really well for us with the pop flashes back haul, sliding in, getting the kill. Like it really, really worked well, and I do think we were a bit ahead during that point, and I contribute that to our win.
Yeah, I definitely do. I'm looking at the VLR of that match, the first match in the group stage. Artists on the cipher in Pro, as you said. A wild occurrence, and one would say a precursor of what we'd seen in him in VCT Americas. Kind of joke right there, but nevertheless. And then also Zekken on the Neon. Obviously we'll see more of that from that point on. And yeah, it all equated into, in addition to your individual performance. You were actually named the MVP on that, so good job on that. It was a start of a run that ultimately finished, as you said, to fifth in the tournament. You guys made it to the playoffs as the first seed of your respective group by beating FPX in the winners match, and then you guys kind of a little bit kind of continued that momentum, beating Fnatic in the first round of the upper bracket. That you guys lost to Optic in the semifinals. That dropped you down to FPX once again, and obviously everybody knows what happened in that second match between XSET and FPX in that tournament. But just sort of now, as we kind of now focus on that match, and most specifically the third map. Obviously, gotta ask you about what happened there. In the final rounds of that match, because there was a turret bug from Killjoy that obviously Riot saw, And after that round kind of concluded and FPX was coming off of the stage victorious, they made the decision to replay that round, and then that kind of led to a situation where basically anything goes and just that being president. But for, before getting into that kind of subject, I want to ask you just sort of how that third match or second match with FPX kind of happened, and how what were some of the things that kind of led to that point for you from your perspective.
Well, they adapted a lot. Going into that match against FPX, they adapted a lot. They dropped the Cypher, for example, on Pearl. Looked really good on Chamber throughout the tournament. They adapted to the meta. And while we were ahead, it was pretty remarkable for FPX to adapt that fast. I mean, we're talking like less than 4 days or 5 days, right? And they go from a team that's trying Cypher and stuff to being the meta abusers, like being in the meta, finding their way, and they really made it work. Like I said, it was a tough game and we lost, right? We lost. And yeah, I remember feeling like, damn, like it's over. Like we'd lost. Like we put everything we could into this game. We walk off the stage. We go. There's like this elevator that takes you up to the interview station where you go up and take interviews. And we're in the elevator, and someone puts their hand in. It's like out of a movie scene. They stop the elevator and they put their hand in, and they go, "Yeah, we need you back. We need you back in your player rooms right now. Can't tell you why." And so we just sit in the, like the waiting room, right? Pretty much
Mhm.
like in our player room where our bags are at. And we're just sitting there and they go, "Okay, guys, no phones. Give me all your phones." And we're like, "What the fuck is going on? Like, we can't have our phones. We can't go to do interviews. We just lost our match. These Riot guys are telling us we can't do anything." The reason that they wanted no phones is that they didn't want us to go back and watch the match because we were going
Mm.
back to replay it. We were going to go back and replay that round. They had decided that the last round was a bug and that for the first time ever, they were going to go back and replay a round. So when we found that out, obviously FPX thought we complained or something. FPX thought like we were complaining to Riot or we like said something like, "Oh, we deserve a replay." Bro, we didn't say anything. We were in our room, sad, depressed about just losing, ready to go to the elevator to do our interviews, and we're told, "Oh, you got to go back. You're going back on stage to play. Get your gear." And yeah, it was a shock. We were trying to stay hydrated. I remember all of us were in the room trying to get a snack, something to eat, stay hydrated, while we were sitting around waiting. And then they get us on stage, and man, what a crazy ending. We're going back and forth in a overtime like style game, and to end up losing that one that way, it's sad, but I'd rather go out fighting than lose in a drastic fashion, right? Like we go out, we play our best game, we barely lost, and I'm proud that, even though we weren't the better team that day, like we could have beaten those guys. If we had just a little bit more juice, we would have beat those guys. Um, so yeah, crazy experience. I'll never forget what it felt like to lose and then lose again. But yeah, like after that, it kind of solidified for all of us in our heads that we deserved to be here and we knew that we could compete with anybody. Um, so even though we lost, it awakened something in us. It made us realize, hey, don't be too down. You made a career in this game. You're gonna continue to be one of the best players no matter what team, if even if this team doesn't stay together, like you're gonna join another team and do great things.
Yeah, and just kind of getting into a little bit getting into what you said, then I guess it'd be fair to say no, absolutely no communication between your team and Riot. Literally, as it was, as you said, right? Like, was there actually no communication up until that point? They decided to make the replay happen.
Yes, it was crazy. Like I said, we were in the elevator ready to leave, and someone told us like pretty much you got to go wait in your room. No info, no anything, and we were just like totally shocked. And then when we finally had someone come, another Riot rep came and said, "You're gonna go replay the round." Uh, we went back and like we were shocked, and we went back into that gear. Like I said, we were like, "All right, let's get some water, let's get some food, let's get ready." Like we were like, "Let's get ready." Psycho was very adamant of like, let me deal with the bullshit. Let me deal with the stuff that's going on. You guys as players, focus up, dial in, do what you need to do, go get some caffeine, do whatever, right? So we had that balance between us when it became like stressful. We had our coach deal with the stressful stuff while we were focused on the match.
Kind of remembering a little bit onto that situation when FPX did the press conference. I think they said it was like it took around 90 minutes, an hour and a half for to go from end of match to doing the replay of the match. Is that kind of fair to say?
It was close to it. You know, honestly, sitting in that room, it's like you're in a black tarp room. You kind of lose track of the time, especially without your phone.
Mhm.
I don't know how much time passed, but it felt like a long time. I remember sitting there and asking, like, what the hell's going on? Because I think for a majority of the time, they were deciding if it was the right idea, if it
Yeah.
was what they wanted to do. And then when it became time to actually go on stage, it had already been, yeah, probably 30 minutes, and it'd been like, okay, now you're cleared. Go out, you know. Because I think they also had to clear the stands because there were fans in the stadium. So I think they had to wait for the fans to leave as well. So that took probably another 15 minutes. Um, so yeah, it was just a long waiting game. A lot of like, emptiness. You're just waiting to hear back from what this thing is. Like, why'd they take our phones, you know? But yeah, it was tough, man.
Was it difficult to have to like reset mentally? From having to go from oh my god, we lost, well, our tournament's done, to then going oh shit, are we really back into this? Are you telling us that this is actually happening? And then having to say, okay, now we got to focus. Whatever's done, whatever's happening, we don't care about it right now. We just got to focus on what's in front of us, and then playing the match. Was that very difficult for you in that regard?
It was difficult for the younger guys in the team. I think at that point in my career, I had kind of been mentoring Zekken and Cryo a lot and been like more of a support for them, getting whatever they need, making sure they're in the right headspace, just, asking them questions, keeping them involved, that kind of thing. Um, and for me, I was locked. I mean, I'm always locked. I think music really helps me get going, but without music, I was still locked. I remember being in that moment being like, "Oh, we got a second life? All right, let's go." Like I remember running and getting all the snacks. I remember getting all the food for my teammates, making sure like I was asking them like, "Yo, what are we doing on this round?" or "What are we gonna do?" or just making sure that they feel good. What do they need? Um, because I was mainly sitting there with Zekken and Cryo while the Aaron, Def, and Psycho were trying to figure out what was going on. I remember they were the leadership was trying to really figure out what was going on. Because we had no idea.
And yeah, like it was definitely one that I believe that's kind of been the one and only instance that we saw this happen in the tier one scene. And obviously there's plenty of like talk about how you know how much of an effect this will give into precedents, and
Yeah.
how you know such a similar occurrence might happen to this again in the future. And that's it. How do you kind of look at that kind of argument, and the importance or more so the effect of precedents into future matches? And in addition to that, on a person, for you in particular, in your opinion, do you feel the replay should have been done?
Like looking back at it, I don't think it really changed the outcome too much. Um, Obviously we still lost, but even in the round that it bugged, uh, we could have played it better. It's not like that's the reason we lost. You know what I mean? Every team has that chance to play around better, given any situation. And in my opinion, it wasn't like a game-breaking bug. Like, obviously, it shot the wrong way and it made us think someone was, heaven, but we still knew there was people at door coming out the tree, right? We still should have been able to make something happen there, get the trades, but we didn't and we lost. Um, I think it's a good decision that they haven't really brought that back when it comes to like replaying rounds. I'd much rather just have them fix the bugs to begin with and not play with any of those in an official. I think that's something that they seem to forget sometimes. Let some of the bugs slip because they're not, game breaking, right? They just only affect the pro play. Happened a lot with KO in the past where KO's knife would read wrong amount of opponents for different players, and they didn't really fix that one right away because it's not, it doesn't game break for ranked. If I queue up ranked, throw a knife, it's not like people are gonna get upset at me if I say the wrong number, right? So it only really affected pro play. Those type of bugs we report all the time, but I wish that there was a better line of communication to those developers, maybe to a specific team to fix those bugs that only affected pro play. Because I'd really pushed for that in that year when I was with XSET, and I remember there were only like a few people I could actually talk to with Riot. So if I could wish for anything to change, it wouldn't be replaying rounds. It would be, I wish that pros had a better outlet to message Riot about game breaking bugs. And I think that if we had that, it would help a lot. I know that the player association is going to help with that as well. But yeah, just having that clear line of communication would be nice.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, you guys were really put into a one in a million situation because it doesn't really happen. Well, hardly anyone can imagine a bug happening that forces a replay of a round in the most important match or not really the most important, but one of the most important matches in the most important event of the VCT. Hardly anyone could believe it before said event happens, but that's what it did, and that's kind of the complex. Well, that's kind of what makes it so complex and how and very difficult to walk around. But such is the case, you know. That's kind of the hand that you were dealt with, and yeah.